Good evening. The South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, or SARC as we know it, was established back in December of 1985. It was a brainchild of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. But 30 years on, SARC is still punching well below its weight. Why, and will it be any different under Mr. Modi? Welcome to the news tonight on the eve of what is the 18th SARC Summit. Up first, as always, is the headlines. All set for the 18th SARC Summit, speculation is still rife about a possible meeting between Modi and Nawaz Sharif, but the Prime Minister cancels his proposed trips to religious places in Nepal. The winter session of Parliament begins. More than 60 bills are pending in both houses. GST and insurance bills are top of the line. It's all set for the first phase of elections in Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand. More than 300 candidates will be squaring off for 15 seats in Jammu and Kashmir and 13 in Jharkhand. The Supreme Court has some rather scathing words for former BCCI chief N. Srinivasan. It says the BCCI is killing cricket in the country. It asks the board to address the conflict of interest issue. And despite a race against time, Iran and 6 world powers failed to clinch a deal on Tehran's nuclear program. The new deadline will be the 1st of March next year. So the 18th SARC Summit is due to begin Tuesday in Kathmandu. It's going to be the second opportunity for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet with his South Asian counterparts. The first, our viewers will remember, was back in June during his inauguration. But, as has been the case so often in the past, yet another SARC summit may be drowned out in the noise generated by India-Pakistan ties. The streets of Kathmandu getting a makeover ahead of the 18th SARC summit. A fresh coat of paint, security being beefed up, even national holidays declared on the 25th and 26th, the days of the summit. Nepal is rolling out the red carpet to make sure that the summit is a huge success.
ये जो सार्क सम्मेलन हो रहा है ये हमारे लिए नेपाली वासियों के लिए एक गौरव की बात है क्योंकि जो इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने जो बात कही थी पहले कैबिनेट में जाके नेपाली में जो बोली थी वो आज सिद्ध हो रहा है।
ये समिट का ऑर्डर है, ये डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से ऑर्डर है, हमको नगर पालिका से ऑर्डर है, हर एक घर से एक गागरी ये शुभ कार्य के लिए आगाड़ी रखने के लिए।
But once again, yet another SARC summit is threatened of being overshadowed by Indo-Pak ties. South Asia's 2 largest countries have suspended all forms of contact after the Foreign Secretary level talks were cancelled back in August. This will be the first time that the Indian and Pakistani Prime Ministers will be sharing the stage since then. But whether this will lead to a bilateral meeting on the sidelines, that's a matter of intense speculation.
SARC has suffered a lot in the shadow of conflict between India and Pakistan, the tension there, although it's a regional forum. But within the regional forum, like this kind of tension or conflict between the 2 countries has had its shadow on its future or its potential.
Naturally, back home, that's given the opposition yet another stick to beat the government with.
What is going to come out of the meeting between Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif? That is the moot question. I mean, if they want to meet to exchange some pleasantries, to eat some dhokla or to have some Lahori food, then it's a different matter. But in terms of policy, this government has no policy towards Pakistan.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was also all set to visit Janakpur, Lumbini and Muktinath. Those plans now stand cancelled. The official reason? Because of the Prime Minister's busy schedule. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. I tell you what, they certainly won't be eating any dhoklas in Kathmandu. We will be talking about India and Pakistan over the next couple of days, I'm sure, because that's going to dominate the headlines. But I want to take off from where that story just left. I want to bring in Professor S.D. Muni from the Jawaharlal Nehru University. He's a foreign affairs expert, a particular expert on South Asia. I don't know if you caught the last bit of our story, which said that the plans to go to some of these religious places, Janakpur, Muktinath, Lumbini and so on, have been cancelled. The ostensible official reason we've been given by the Ministry of External Affairs is that it clashes with the Prime Minister's busy schedule. That seems a little far-fetched to buy because clearly this was a plan that the Prime Minister had mooted. He had sent word to the Nepalese authorities. The government was keen, and then suddenly differences cropped up within the ruling coalition in Nepal. Walk us through what's your understanding of why this has been cancelled and what the possible fallout of that could be.
You are absolutely correct that this proposal actually created a lot of problems amongst the Nepali coalition partners, particularly between the Nepali Congress and the UML. And they thought, one of the live issues these days in Nepali politics is the constitution, where the federalism question is coming in a big way. And the Tarai is asking for its representation, its own federalism, where it can have an identity. That's not acceptable to the ruling coalition. And they thought that if Mr. Modi goes to Janakpur and addresses a public meeting, obviously he will boost the morale of the Madhesi politicians and Madhesi people, and they would start asserting themselves more in the Nepali politics. Therefore, they made two excuses. One was that we may not be able to provide security in an open place. And secondly, they said that if other SARC heads of the states of the government also want to address Nepali people, how can we handle that? Under these excuses, they told Indian side that only 400 to 500 people would be there in Janakpur and not the public meeting.
What about
an offense?
Would this be taken as
to the Indian sentiments?
Would this be taken as offensive by the Indian establishment, by the Prime Minister in his office? Because this was something that was close to his heart. He did go to some of these places of worship. The last time he was there, he addressed the Nepalese parliament as well, and it was all well received. Would this lead to some kind of recalibration, if you will? Because as I understand, there are some sections of the Indian establishment who are unhappy with the lack of progress in writing the second constitution, the deadline for which is the third week of January. There doesn't seem to be a deal likely, at least by that deadline. Is there disappointment? Is there some amount of concern in the Indian establishment about the direction in which Nepal is going? And will this lead to some kind of recalibration given what happened in the UPA years?
Well, there would be very much. I tell you, it's the meeting, visiting the religious places was not only very close to the heart of Mr. Modi, but remember, Mr. Modi had given a promise on the floor of the parliament Constituent Assembly in Nepal, in which he said, I will be visiting Janakpur, Lumbini and the Shiva temple there. Now, suddenly he has to cancel it. And I think in order to save the face of the Nepali politician, the Indian side has given an explanation that he has commitments at home. I feel that the kind of dynamism which Mr. Modi has been exhibiting everywhere else, he could always somehow squeeze one day to carry out these visits and also keep his promise. But that would have disturbed the political equations in Nepal, particularly, as I said, and as you have also rightly said on the constitution making, that it would strengthen those people who are asking for federalism based on identity, which the ruling coalition is not willing to give. In fact, ruling coalition says that we will make the constitution, if not possible out of consensus, by voting. And if they do it by voting, then this constitution would be highly controversial, would not be acceptable not only to the Maoists, but also to the Janjatis and Tarai people.
All right. We'll have to leave it at that, Professor Muni.
In India, and more so in Nepal.
Okay, I'm sorry, we'll have to leave it at there because of the paucity of time. I deliberately did not bring up the India-Pakistan equation because I'm sure that we will be talking about that through the course of the SAC summit and also maybe even beyond. So I'm sure we'll have another chance to talk about India and Pakistan. For the moment, thanks very much, Professor S.D. Muni from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, foreign affairs expert, a South Asia expert, giving us his thoughts and perspective into how the 18th SAC summit is likely to play out, particularly on the India-Nepal equation, and of course this last-minute cancellation of the proposed trips to religious places that the Prime Minister had expressed an interest in. Meanwhile, here domestically, the winter session of Parliament, of course, began today. It's likely to witness a lot of action on the floor of both houses. The government is hoping to keep the business of the House strictly to its economic agenda. The opposition, on the other hand, is hoping to corner the government on the issues of price rise as well as black money.
On the first day of the winter session of Parliament, the Prime Minister reached out to opposition parties. He expressed hope that they will be cooperative in ensuring smooth running of the House.
पिछले सत्र में विपक्ष की सकारात्मक भूमिका के कारण बहुत ही अच्छे काम हुए थे। इस बार भी वैसा ही अनुभव रहेगा, ऐसा मुझे पूरा भरोसा है।
The opposition parties, however, seem intent on raising other issues including price rise and black money.
बहुत से मुद्दे हैं, क्योंकि एक तरफ तो ब्लैक मनी का उन्होंने वायदा किया था 100 दिन में, आज तक एक पैसा भी नहीं आया। बहुत से ऐसे इतने मुद्दे हैं कि हमने ये कहा स्पीकर को कि इसमें से हर मुद्दे के ऊपर कम से कम 1 घंटा 2 घंटे बहस होना चाहिए।
हम ये भी पूछना चाहेंगे कि बड़े बड़े उद्योगपतियों को आपने बिना गारंटी के स्टेट बैंक से हजारों करोड़ रुपए कैसे दिला दिए इस सरकार ने?
The Shiv Sena's support though comes as a breather for the government.
जो भी हमारी ताकत है हम सरकार के साथ ही रहेंगे। कोई हमारा भारतीय जनता पार्टी से दिल्ली में या राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कोई हमारा मतभेद नहीं है।
Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan has assured all parties that they will be given enough opportunities to speak in the House.
प्रजातंत्र है, लेकिन हाँ, प्रजातंत्र में भी नियम कायदे भी चलते ही है, तो चलेगा। मैं विश्वास है मुझे कि अच्छे तरीके से चलेगा। मेरी कोशिश तो यही रहेगी ना कि काम हो, शांति से हो और सबको मौका मिले। मौका देने के लिए मैं तैयार हूँ।
The much delayed insurance bill seeking to allow more foreign capital into the sector, the goods and services tax bill, and the bills seeking to replace the coal ordinance are topmost on the government's agenda in this month-long winter session. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
Now, like Vishal's story pointed out, the one bill that the government is hoping will get passed in the winter session is the insurance bill, and there is a sliver of hope for the government. The Bahujan Samaj Party has indicated it could support the government on the insurance bill. It proposes to clear the way to try and bring in more foreign investment into this sector. The bill is the government's top priority among all the financial bills. For now, though, it is with a select committee.
BSP President Mayawati has said her party could support the insurance amendment bill. She said her party will keep its point of view in front of the parliamentary committee examining this bill.
यदि वो कुछ हमारे सुझाव मान लेते हैं, तो हम बिना वजह इस बिल का क्यों विरोध करेंगे?
Sources say the parliamentary committee examining the insurance amendment bill has not been able to form a consensus. That's why Finance Minister Arun Jaitley is personally in touch with some opposition leaders seeking their support. The Finance Minister wants the committee to give its report soon so that the government has ample time to get the bill passed.
We are committed. We want this reform of insurance at the earliest, and I am confident of getting the support of the major opposition parties.
There are also reports that the Congress could also lend its support to the government on the insurance bill. This bill was first introduced by the UPA government in 2008. At that time, the BJP had not allowed it to be passed. Shyam Sundar's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, on day one today, the Rajya Sabha was adjourned following the death of sitting member and veteran Congress leader Murli Manohar. The upper house also paid tributes to former members who died in the intervening period between the last and current sessions.
On the first day of the winter session, Rajya Sabha mourned the passing away of Murli Manohar.
I request members to rise in their places and observe silence as a mark of respect to the memory of the departed.
The former Union Minister died on Monday morning at the age of 77 in Mumbai after a prolonged illness. A four-time parliamentarian in the lower house and a sitting member of the upper house, Manohar chaired important parliamentary standing committees like finance. He was elected chairman of Parliamentarians for Global Action and International Network of Parliamentarians.
In the passing away of Shri Murli Manohar, the country has lost a distinguished parliamentarian, an able administrator, and a dedicated social worker.
The House also made obituary references to the demise of former members Lekh Raj Bachani, Sardar Jagdev Singh Talwandi and S.S. Rajendran, and also world-renowned yoga exponent B.K.S. Iyengar.
We deeply mourn the passing away of Shri B.K.S. Iyengar, Shri Lekh Raj Bachani, Sardar Jagdev Singh Talwandi, Shri S.S. Rajendran.
After the members observed silence, the chair adjourned the House till Tuesday.
As a mark of respect to the memory of Shri Murli Manohar, sitting member, the House stands adjourned till 11 a.m. on Tuesday, 25th of November 2014.
Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's talk a little bit about the senior Congress leader and Rajya Sabha member Murli Manohar, who passed away early this morning. He was 78. The former Union Minister died at his home in Mumbai at 3:25 a.m. this morning. He's survived by his wife and two sons, including former Congress MP and Minister Milind Manohar.
The Gandhi family members paying their last respects to Murli Bhai. As Congress stalwart, Murli Deora was known to friends across the political and corporate spectrum.
कंट्रीब्यूशन हमारे कांग्रेस पार्टी के प्रति भी जब वो एमआरसीसी प्रेसिडेंट रहे तो उन्होंने जिस तरह ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को वो लेकर चले वो एक मिसाल उन्होंने कायम किया.
In a 4-decade-long career, Deora was India's longest-serving petroleum minister before he served as Minister of Corporate Affairs for a short while in 2011.
बहुत दुखद घटना हुई है. उन्होंने जब से मैं बचपन से देखती आई हूँ उनका काम और बहुत बुरा लगा ये सुनकर और मेरी संवेदना मैं व्यक्त करती हूँ उनके परिवार के प्रति.
He was also the longest-serving chief of Mumbai Regional Congress Committee that he held for 22 years.
महान नेता इस मुंबई शहर के, महाराष्ट्र के और हमारे इस देश के सपूत का आज हम सबके बीच में से चले जाना एक बहुत बड़ी क्षति हमें हुई है.
An economics graduate, Deora held the post of Mayor of Mumbai from 1977 to 1978. In 1985, he was elected to the Lok Sabha from Mumbai South, going on to be re-elected thrice from the constituency.
मुरली देवरा जी एक बहुत ही सीनियर और सीजन नेता थे. उनकी कांग्रेस परिवार के एक बहुत ही अच्छे सदस्य थे और उन्होंने कांग्रेस अध्यक्ष रहते हुए और मंत्री रहते हुए कांग्रेस की और इस देश की सेवा करी.
मुरली देवरा जी कांग्रेस के बहुत बड़े नेता थे. हमारे मुंबई से उनका ताल्लुकात रहा है. मुंबई के मेयर भी रहे हैं. मुंबई महानगर पालिका में बहुत सालों से हमारे साथ भी उनका रिश्ता रहा.
Deora joined the Union Cabinet in 2006, shortly before he turned 70. In April 2002, Deora was elected to the Rajya Sabha. He was re-elected in April 2008 and was currently serving his third term in the upper house. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Our thoughts, prayers and condolences with the family of Murli Deora. We're going to take a break here in the program. When we come back, big shake-up in the Obama cabinet. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is all set to step down. We're expecting a live feed from the US President himself anytime now. The News Tonight is back right after this. Welcome back to the News Tonight. Time now for all the election stories. 15 seats will be at stake when Jammu and Kashmir goes to the polls tomorrow. Over 100 candidates are in the fray. This is the first phase. Stakes are particularly high for the ruling National Conference, with as many as 7 ministers seeking re-election in this phase alone.
The stage is set for the first of the 5-phased assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir. In a multi-cornered contest this year, stakes will be high for National Conference. As many as 6 ministers are seeking re-election in the first phase. Higher Education Minister Mohammad Akbar Lone, Minister for Urban Development Nawang Rizanjora and Minister for Roads and Buildings Abdul Majid Wani are some of the prominent names on the list. 5 more sitting MLAs are also among 123 candidates in fray for the 15 assembly seats in all 3 regions of the state. Yet to recover fully from the recent flood tragedy, many people still remain displaced, raising questions over what sort of turnout will the first phase see. Coupled with that is a cold spell that has pushed the mercury below freezing point in several parts of the state. The valley experienced its coldest night this season on Sunday.
इस तरह कश्मीर सैलाब से डूबा हुआ था तो पानी से तो बहुत सारे सर्द है दीवारें मकानों की. उन्होंने बहुत सारा पानी पी रखा. जहाँ तक हमारा ताल्लुक है इस साल तो मानी कि सर्दी जाने का नाम ही नहीं ली.
दूसरी यहाँ जो सैलाब आ गया उसकी वजह से मकानों में बहुत ठंडा है तो इसकी वजह से तकरीबन सभी मकानों में हर एक को एक कमरे में से एक ब्लोअर चाहिए.
But Election Commission keeps its fingers crossed. Polling will begin at 8 in the morning to avoid early morning chill. Thousands of security forces and poll officials have started to reach polling stations in 7 districts.
सिक्योरिटी के मुकम्मल इंतजामात किए गए हैं जो हर मुमकिन हो सकते हैं. लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की प्रॉब्लम कोई हो सकती है क्योंकि ये लोकल इलेक्शन है और हर पार्टी का इंटरेस्ट रहता है ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वोट हासिल करने का. उसके लिए हमने इंतजामात किए हुए हैं.
Poll campaign for this phase ended Sunday evening. PDP is trying to exploit the anti-incumbency factor against ruling NC.
Meanwhile, BJP, riding high on recent assembly poll victories, is looking to make strong inroads in the state. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, voting will also take place in 13 Maoist-affected constituencies in Jharkhand tomorrow. The first phase of polling will see around 200 candidates in the fray. The fate of quite a few big names will be decided tomorrow. A little over 30 lakh voters are at play.
Amid boycott call by Maoists, Jharkhand is prepared for the first of the 5 phased assembly polls on Tuesday. After ruling JMM and Congress split ways, the election promises to be a 4-way contest in the state. 199 candidates will be contesting for the 13 seats at stake on Tuesday. Interestingly, Chief Minister Hemant Soren's party failed to win any of these seats in previous election. Around 33 lakh voters are expected to cast their ballots. There are a number of prominent candidates in fray in this phase. Jharkhand Rural Development Minister K.N. Tripathi, Congress State President Sukhdev Bhagat, RJD's Jharkhand Unit President Girinath Singh and former Minister Sudha Chaudhary are some of the heavyweights who will be trying their luck. Security has been stepped up to avoid any Maoist-related incidents. District election officers said all necessary precautions are being taken in the Maoist-affected districts.
सारे मतदान केंद्रों पर ठोस व्यवस्था की गई है, पारामिलिट्री फोर्स का डिप्लॉयमेंट किया गया है और भी सारे मतदान दलों को, मतदान कर्मियों को, सेक्टर अफसर्स को सुरक्षा से संबंधित सारी एहतियाती कदमों के बारे में प्रशिक्षण दे दिया गया है। हेलीकॉप्टर से 31 बूथ के मतदान कर्मियों को भेजा गया है।
The state is looking for some sort of political stability after years of uncertainty and frequent phases of president's rule. Incumbent Chief Minister Hemant Soren's hope to return to power will be strongly tested by the RJD-JDU alliance. BJP too is hoping to ride high on its success in Maharashtra and Haryana post Lok Sabha polls victory. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, some international news now. And no deal was struck in the Iran nuclear talks as the deadline ended today. World leaders in Iran are still at loggerheads, but a new deadline has now been set. It's going to be the 1st of March next year. Details about the new talks are still being worked out.
No final agreement. Yet another deadline missed to resolve 12-year standoff over Tehran's atomic ambitions. The new date to conclude the Iran nuclear deal is now set for March 1st, 2015. The deadline for final agreement will be 1st July. One of the main sticking points this time around was on lifting sanctions against Iran. Iran wants significant sanctions lifted right away, but P5+1 members say they want them to go incrementally.
I wouldn't want to give any false hopes here. We're still quite a long way apart, and there are some very tough and complex issues to deal with, but we're all focused.
Discuter ce soir, négocier, continuer les négociations. Encore des différences, oui, à régler. Bon, mais c'est notre travail. À bientôt.
Closely watching the talks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that no deal is better than a bad deal.
Prime Minister Netanyahu was updated by Secretary Kerry. I was updated by other countries that participate in the talks. And we are doing our best to convince not to sign a bad deal with Iran, a deal that will enable Iran to become a threshold nuclear state.
It will be a third extension for Iran's nuclear program. The United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China started the final round of talks with Iran on November 18th. The aim was to clinch a deal under which Tehran will curb its nuclear ambitions in exchange for lifting sanctions that just ended in wilderness. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, a big story stateside. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel has resigned. According to American officials, Hagel submitted his resignation after lengthy discussions with the president, which started back in October. Now, this resignation ends nearly 2 years that Mr. Hagel had as the top man at the Pentagon. Officials said that the decision to remove the defense secretary was a recognition by the Obama administration that the threat of the Islamic State will need a different kind of response. A senior official also said that a successor will be named soon, but Hagel will continue to be defense secretary until a replacement is confirmed by the United States Senate. Top potential candidates include Michelle Fleury, she's a former Undersecretary of Defense, Ashton Carter, a former Deputy Secretary of Defense, and also Senator Jack Reed, a Democrat from Rhode Island. These are some of the possible contenders, but this is, of course, a big shake-up in the Obama cabinet. And that, of course, is going to have a fallout when President Obama comes to India to be the chief guest for the Republic Day celebrations, because some big defense deals were expected in that visit as well. We'll keep a track of that. Right now, Global Buzz. A 12-year-old African-American boy was shot dead by the police in Cleveland in the United States. The police apparently shot the boy who was waving around what turned out to be a toy gun. The police department is investigating this incident. It also placed 2 officers under administrative leave. And this, of course, coming on the back of the Michael Brown incident in Missouri. In Bangladesh, the Supreme Court has rejected appeals by the main opposition leader and former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, clearing the way for trial on graft charges. Zia could be jailed for life if she's found guilty. The top court had upheld a previous identical decision by the High Court, observing that she must face trial in the lower court on graft charges over an orphanage which was named after her slain husband, former President Ziaur Rahman. US President Barack Obama has lent tacit support to fellow Democrat and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in a possible presidential run for the White House in 2016. Obama said that Clinton would make, and I quote him here, a formidable and a great president if she were elected. The 67-year-old who served as Secretary of State lost her 2008 presidential race to the eventual President Obama. Clinton is expected to announce her decision in early 2015 whether or not she's going to run for the top job again. Transitional leaders in Burkina Faso have agreed on a new government, with the military retaining some of the key posts. A military man, Issouf Zida, was named Prime Minister. He will also retain the defense portfolio. The 49-year-old led the country after a popular revolt that toppled longtime President Blaise Compaoré, but he vowed that he will restore the country back to civilian rule. Some sports news now, and the biggest reprimand to the BCCI of late. The Supreme Court today said that the board was killing the game of cricket. The top court also rebuked N. Srinivasan, who moved the court seeking his reinstatement once again as BCCI president, by asking him to first address the unavoidable conflict of interest. Remember, he has been BCCI chief. He also owns one of the IPL teams, the Chennai Super Kings.
BCCI is killing cricket in India. IPL and BCCI are mutually benefiting society. How can the BCCI chief have his own IPL team? The Supreme Court made scathing remarks, virtually indicting the BCCI in the IPL betting scandal on Monday. It also told Indian cricket's premier governing body that it had done little to preserve the common man's trust in the gentleman's game.
कहते हैं कि बीसीसीआई और आईपीएल अलग हैं, लेकिन पहले तो ये मुझे बताएं कि दोनों के ट्रेजर एक कैसे हैं? जो बीसीसीआई का ट्रेजर है वो आईपीएल का ट्रेजर भी है.
The court reserved its most scathing remarks for the suspended president of the BCCI, N. Srinivasan, asking him to come clean on the conflict of interest and how he justified being the board president and owner of the Chennai Super Kings. The court also reminded Srinivasan that he was only assuming that he was given a clean chit.
जो भी ऑर्डर आएगा ये लैंडमार्क जजमेंट होगा और क्रिकेट के हित में, बीसीसीआई के हित में, और आने वाले जो जनरेशन है जो गंदे कामों की तरफ ज़्यादा उनका ध्यान रहता है खेल के प्रति, उन लोगों के लिए एक कड़ा सबक होगा.
The Justice Mukul Mudgal report on the IPL spot fixing scandal accused Srinivasan and other IPL officials of covering up misdeeds of an unnamed player who violated the player's code of conduct. Srinivasan's son-in-law Gurunath Mayappan and Rajasthan Royals co-owner Raj Kundra have already been indicted for betting. The hearing on the case will resume on Tuesday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, we know that Mr. Srinivasan is an extremely religious man. He'll have to do the rounds of a lot of temples if his name needs to be cleared from all this mess. That's a wrap of the news tonight. For tonight, from me, Zaka Jacob, and the rest of the team, thanks very much for your time. Do stick around. The news continues to roll here on Rajya Sabha Television. We'll see you again tomorrow night, same time. Good night.